Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. So this is my slightly late, not surprising, wrap up for December 2022. It is like the middle of the month in January of 2023, and I'm finally finding some time and motivation to film this wrap up of all of the books that I finished in the last month of last year. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get right into it. So the first thing that I finished this month is a sequel, which is Godsgrave by Jay Kristoff. This is the second book in the Nevernight Chronicle, which is a trilogy. I loved book one, it was amazing, and I really liked this one too. I gave it 5 stars, maybe more like 4.5, but easy choice to round up to 5 for Goodreads. It took a little while for me to get hooked on this one, but once I got re-entrenched in the world and writing style, I was off to the races. And no spoilers, but this series follows a girl named Mia Corvair who joins a church of assassins in order to get revenge on a handful of people responsible for killing her father and destroying her family. And the second book is basically a big long tournament / training montage, and it's part of her following up on her revenge, and you can kind of see what looks like a coliseum on the cover. And the artwork for these books is just so stunning. I love them so much, and the outfits and the stuff that are on the cover of the books have been described in the books at some point, so it's cool to see the author's vision, with my own eyes with the art on the cover. You meet new characters who are entertaining. You get to see firsthand how the Republic is basically held together by slavery, which is horrible, and Mia struggles with the realities of what she faces for the first time and trying to stay true to her goal that's driving her forward. Mia's great, we love her passenger familiars, and I actually just today finished book 3. It was so epic and awesome. So in the last book, you kind of finally see the conclusion of her revenge, but this is still her revenge in the making, and it was just really great. This series is fantastic. Then I finished The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd-Jones. This is a Welsh-inspired fantasy following a girl named Mare who has the rare ability to control water, and she's on the run from the prince of the land who she used to work for and who made her unwittingly kill a lot of people, but her old mentor finds her and asks her to join him on a mission to steal and cripple the source of the prince's power, basically. So they gather a crew of people to try and pull off a dangerous heist mission. And this was a very quick and easy read. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, maybe more like 3.5, but rounding up to 4, it was entertaining. I like the Welsh inspiration, and this is apparently sort of a retelling of an existing Welsh myth, so that's cool. Lots of Welsh words in this book, and the first half was setup and introductions to the crew, and then they enact their plan in the second half. And there's a character in particular who is kind of apart from the rest because he worked for years in a forest ruled by the other folk who are dangerous and kind of fae-like, and he was my favorite character. He was really cool. This book doesn't really have romance, aside from some tension between 2 female main characters who were previously in a relationship that ended badly, and then there's a little bit at the very end that's very minimal. A major theme in this story is responsibility and the idea that something may not be your fault but may still be your responsibility. And this apparently takes place in the same world as Emily Lloyd-Jones's other book called The Bone Houses, which is also on my TBR, so hopefully one day I get to read that too. But this was good. Nothing like super extraordinary, but I still had a fun time with it. And so sorry if you heard any tinkling in the background, because I got 2 kitties in December. So this is Lilith, and her brother Lucifer is over there. They're kind of wrestling on the floor, so I may need to shut them out of my office, but they are wonderful and lovely, and I love them so much. Little kitten break. Okay, so I finished a book that has been on my TBR for a long time, and that is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This is a standalone adult fantasy that was quite a wild ride. Basically, this is about a girl named Carolyn who was taken in as a child and raised by this powerful man being called Father, who is sort of like a god, and she grew up in a traumatic and dark environment in this place called the library that contains a lot of secret otherworldly knowledge, and she goes and recruits an unwitting guy named Steve to help her steal something, and he finds himself in the middle of a sort of war being waged between powerful forces. I give this 4 out of 5 stars. It was really wild and bizarre. I liked it a lot. It reminded me of books like American Gods by Neil Gaiman. It was absurd, and things happen that you just have to accept. There is a lion that is a recurring character, for instance. There are made-up languages and concepts, but this takes place in our world. A lot of it is told by switching between the present and the past, so you'll find out what something means eventually, but you might read a passage and just be like, what is she referencing? Like, why is this like that? And you'll have to wait until the story flashes back to explain it. There is a goodly amount of violence. There are explanations and descriptions of people dying and being tortured. So, you know, content warnings for that. But there was also humor, that kind of humor that comes with a book, you know, that you would describe as absurd. The characters were entertaining and interesting. The book was like how you see, you know, a car accident while you're driving on the road, but you can't look away, you know, in a good way. In this case, if you prefer a linear story, you'll probably get confused and frustrated by how this jumps around a lot in the early parts. And it also has that kind of flat feeling dialogue, if you know what I mean. Like, that's kind of what happens with dry humor, kind of. It leaves a lot to the imagination to put intonation and expression on the dialogue, if that makes sense. So it was quirky and bizarre, like not a new all-time favorite, but I still really enjoyed it. And, you know, it's an adult fantasy, so if you're looking for, you know, adult fantasy versus YA or middle grade, then, and if you like absurdity, then you might enjoy this. And then I read The Depths by Nicole Lesperance. This is the Owl Crate edition, which is very pretty and looks very different from the normal cover. I'll like put a picture of what it looks like. But the end pages are very shiny and pretty, just a very pretty edition. And this is a YA mystery horror about a girl named Addie who's recovering from a freediving accident, and she goes with her mom and stepdad on their honeymoon because her mom doesn't want to leave her alone by herself after her accident. And they go to this private island called Eulalie Island, and it's beautiful, but there's something strange and unsettling happening. The flowers change color overnight in front of their eyes. The birds make strange noises that sound like they're calling her name, and it's like the island is alive and wants her somehow. And I thought this was good. This is another 3.5 that I did decide to round up for Goodreads. I did like it, and I had a good time reading it. I have a bit of a phobia of creepy plants, like sundew plants, like that plant from Jumanji. Oh my goodness. So the vivid imagery of these flowers and vines like blooming and bleeding sap and reacting to Addie is kind of disturbing to me, and I thought the book had a good atmosphere. It's a different kind of setting for horror than I'm used to. It's like it takes place on this humid, tropical, sunny island, and the spooks in this book aren't hidden for very long. If you prefer seeing your spooks, you know, out of the corner of your eye and mostly going off vibes, versus, you know, monsters or ghosts or creatures, then this one probably isn't for you. They step out of the shadows pretty early on, and she interacts with them very directly. And Addie is dealing with the frustration of her limitations while she's recovering from injury. She's doubting herself and who she is without being able to do her passion, her freediving. And I think that people will be able to relate to that if you've recovered from a long injury or something where you're just not able to do what you used to love. So like The Drowning Woods, like it wasn't the most fantastic book ever, but it was good, enough to raise the 3.5 up to a 4 versus down to a 3. So yeah. And then the last book I read in December, the last book of the year, was actually an audiobook. And it's another one that's been on my TBR for a while, and it's Angel Mage by Garth Nix, narrated by Kristen Atherton. It's a YA fantasy that takes place in a world where practitioners of magic are able to summon angels and harness their power through the use of icons. And the antagonist of the story is a very powerful mage named Lilith, who wakes up from this ancient slumber that she put herself under in order to reunite with her lover, Pelennial, who is the archangel of the land of Istara. And she will do whatever it takes to make that happen. And there are 4 people who have an important part to play in her plans, and they all feel this connection to one another even though they've never met before. So you're following them as they try and understand what's going on between them while Lilith enacts her plan in another POV. And another book that I had a fun time with, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, definitely a solid 4 for me. This wasn't the most incredibly written book out there in any sense necessarily, but I still just really liked it. The world building was really cool. Even if I would have liked a bit more of a deep dive into certain parts of it, this is a standalone. I loved the use of angelology as the magic system. It was super cool. I would love to read more fantasy with angels, so if you know of anything like that, any books like that, let me know. I'm very interested in that right now. The resolution at the end of this was very fast. It was kind of like, oh, that's it? That's all it took? It kind of made 3 of the 4 main characters feel a little bit pointless. But aside from that, I enjoyed the characters and the world building of this. It was fun and really cool. I just had a grand old time listening to it. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. So that's it. Those are the 5 books that I read in December. I surpassed my Goodreads goal by quite a lot because I started listening to audiobooks, and that has really allowed me to read so many more books than I used to just reading physically. So I blew past my goal, and I'm excited to see what reading brings me in 2023. I finally have my library all set up, and eventually I will do a little bookshelf tour, a little library room tour. But yeah, I am excited to get started reading in 2023. I've read a couple books already, an audiobook, and again, I literally just today finished reading the 3rd book in the Nevernight Chronicle, and it was excellent. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are having a good start to 2023. Let's leave 2022 behind, and hopefully good times are ahead. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!